Hello there everybody. So I'm going to do a little stress test of the server. Hopefully some of the guys will be joining us from the team. I can talk through some of the new features. The map is still the same pretty much. Let's talk about some of the changes that we've made. So there's some changes you can see to the UI here. The shield and the health. We have a camera shake when you sprint, and you can sprint for 1 minute. I think 1 minute is the total amount of time you can sprint for. We've got some placeholder AI here, which are just zombies right now, but it's just to test out the AI on the server. Let's see what it looks like. So we still have really loud sniper. Oh, the server's restarted. Shit. Just as a start. It restarts. So yeah, the shotgun and the sniper rifle are still really loud. So we need to fix that. I keep asking the guys to fix. But I think that the most important feature that we've added, which you will have seen already, probably from some of our videos, is these vehicles. So right now we've got a button assigned so that we can just spawn lots of different types of vehicles. And yeah, because we want to stress test and see how many we could actually fit on the server. And there's actually quite a lot, like loads and loads. We could probably create hundreds of them and there wouldn't be any problems. So that's good. Okay, so one thing that we need to change is that you can't crash into the NPCs, so basically they stop the vehicle straight away, so we need to add ragdoll. When you hit players and NPCs, so then they fall over like in Grand Theft Auto. So these are the old hover vehicles which have the hover mechanics, which is really good. We haven't made any changes to these because we've been working on optimization and adding the new vehicles. But yeah, so now people will have a choice to switch between either the land vehicles on the wheels or the hover vehicles. And what we're going to do is soon we're going to add in the cyborg cops, so then you'll have a choice of which player you want to go, which character you want to go. And the cops will have access to the hover vehicles first to give them an advantage, and then players will be able to get them as well. So, but yeah, just to have a difference between playing the hover, the cyber cop or the human citizen. That's what we'll do. So we've got a bug here, so that the gun disappears when you come out of the vehicle. That needs to be fixed. Grenades don't affect the vehicles, nor do they affect the AI. So if we throw a grenade at the AI, it doesn't affect them, but we can fix that. What else? Yeah, so you saw there that we've got the damage direction, so you see where the damage comes from. So it's the same here with the AI guys. Yeah, when they come for me, they hit you. You can see the direction that they hit you at, you know. So it's still really early, but it's coming along. But yeah, we've got plenty of vehicles here. We can pile them up on top of each other. Yeah. Hover vehicles and land vehicles. But yeah, obviously this is still just a pre-alpha demo, so we've got a lot more work to do. All this stuff you guys will have seen already. We've got all these areas here you can explore. Let's see, the climbing mechanics works. It's all good. We can improve the animations, but it's all good. The dash mechanics are good. Oh, we've got sliding. There you go, check that out. You see that? You can slide into crouch position. So slide like this. That's better, right? So it's kind of, I think it's like Gears of War, where people do that, you know. You can slide onto the. Yeah, we've still got the sound of the player walking, the footsteps when you slide, but we can fix that. We need to do all the work on the audio. So the plan is to have this as a sliding into cover. So what will happen is you'll slide like this, and then you'll automatically be in cover. You know, this you can't go into cover here. There's only certain areas you can go into cover, and in fact, I don't think we have any of the cover obstacles in this build. We've removed them because we had to fix some issues. But that is the purpose of having the sliding into cover. So that's what we'll update later. So this is what it's like just with me playing. Hopefully some other guys will join. We've got a vehicle up here, let's see. Okay, so we've got an issue here with the decals. It seems that the player and the vehicles are both receiving decals, so that needs to be fixed. So our character is currently in the passenger seat. We need to get rid of that placeholder model of the guy sitting in the car and move him away. But yeah, you can see the suspension on the vehicle, and you can rotate the camera around the vehicle, which is better than it was before, you know. So why don't we shoot some of the AI? So these guys are really tough. These are like bosses, you know. They take a bit more damage. Yeah. There's an issue with the shotgun audio, so when I'm reloading the shotgun, yeah, the audio seems to clip off. Whoa, don't know what happened there. A little bit of lag there, I think. So yeah, the other thing to bear in mind is that all of this is running on the server, right? So all the position of the AI and everything is all network replicated. So So I just found a bug there. So it seems that even when I'm really far away from the vehicle, see that? So let's go all the way over here. So even when I'm really far away from the vehicle, if I press enter vehicle, it puts me back inside the vehicle. I wonder if it puts me inside the nearest vehicle. Let's see. What I'll do is I'll spawn. No, I won't spawn another vehicle because that's the last one that I spawned. What I'll do is I'll come over here, and then I'll press F. Yeah, it keeps on spawning me back into the last vehicle. Okay, I'll mention that to the guys. I'll get that fixed. Okay. So, even though the grenades don't affect the AI, it's still cool to see. Yeah, so these eventually will be robots. You know, they're zombies right now, but they will be robots. But yeah, we wanted to add AI just to make it more interesting, because if it's just players, then if the server is quiet, then there's nothing to do really. Whereas if there's some AI, then at least you've got something to fight with. Looks like the shotgun reloading is quite slow as well. Oops, and there's a bit of lag here with the NPC. Oh shit! Just jumping all around all over the place. Ah, I'm dead. Okay. So yeah, I don't really like these zombies. I think it would be better if they were just robots straight away. But it's just kind of like one step at a time, you know. But yeah, we're making progress. There's a few bugs on the on this build from when we upgraded, because we had to update the engine from Unreal 4.23 to 4.25. And they've also just brought out Unreal Engine 4.26, which has really cool water effects. So we should probably have that at some point. We can have like a sea somewhere players can explore. Okay. There we go. So we can also do a handbrake as well. Skid around like this. Yeah, I mean we've got some work to do with the collision and a lot of optimization, but obviously we're going to do all that work once we've got more people on the team. Right now we're still just a very small team. We have some more guys joining us in January. We've got a level designer, our Houdini artist, another programmer, and another 3D artist. So yeah. So we'll be making a lot more progress on the environment assets next year. So yeah, I think, yeah, the server restarted. Okay, cool. So I don't know if anybody else is going to join, although the point was to actually playtest together, so that then we could see how many people can drive around at the same time and see if there's any issues with that, you know. But let me just see if the guys are available. Well, all I can do is wait for them to join. Maybe they will join in a bit. We have an issue here with the. You've got the number of the how much ammo is left on the gun. So it's still there when you're running. That needs to be removed. In fact, you should only really see it when you're targeting like this. You shouldn't. Yeah, it disappears like that. That's what it should be like. So there seems to be a bug with the ammo counter staying on the gun when you're running, so that should also be fixed. And also, yeah, this is a thing that we've had for quite a while, is when you're sprinting, the character's only carrying the gun with one hand. And we're going to change that animation soon as well, so that he's holding it with both hands. Yeah, we have a new programmer who specializes in animation. He was the guy that did the crouch thing. Oh, there's a bug. So it seems that while I'm crouching, like sliding to crouch, I can still jump. Okay. Yeah, that needs to be fixed. Okay, I think we've got somebody joining. Let me just tab out. Can I go to Slack? Also, there seems to be, previously we were able to press the tab key to see how many people were on the server, and now we can't do that. I just press the tab key and I've got this debug thing coming up. So I don't know how to disable that, unless I go into the console and then show, what is it, capsule. I don't know, maybe, oops. I guess I'll just have to wait for the server to restart. So there's other things as well. So when you're jumping like this, when you're running this direction and you're jumping like this, but then if you're running in this direction, then you jump, then you turn around like this. Ideally, the jump should stay in the direction that you're running in, right? So just give me a sec. Can't find his username. Okay.
Hey, Steven.
Hello, how are you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm very well.
Cool, I actually just walked in right when you said that. I was like, oh, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, I was expecting there to be everybody joining us, but I don't know. It was actually Nick and Evgeny's idea to do the stress test,
Right, right. No, I understand. And like I said, I know I've been really busy lately and haven't had much time. Do you have the IP handy by any chance, or did you put it in the Slack?
I'll put it into Slack. It's in the general chat.
I see it. I see it.
Yeah.
I see it.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Let's see. I got two screens, so. But yeah, I haven't gone in until the other day when I posted that screenshot. It's come a long way. It looks really good. It looks really good.
Thanks. We're making some progress. I mean, we're still such a small team, but
Yeah.
Really, the goal is to get this demo polished enough to be able to bring to investors and publishers, ideally investors, and then maybe we can self-publish.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of things that I want to add, but the thing is that the more things we add, then the more bugs we end up having. So
I totally get it, and I hope that my contributions are seen as just ideas. I'm just trying to help you guys brainstorm. That's all.
Yeah.
I understand if you can't, if those things are. I don't know what is technically capable. You know what I mean? That's not my forte, obviously. Obviously I center my thoughts around economic ideas, but when it comes to all the questions I asked, it's like everything affects the economy. Literally everything you do, every decision you make has an impact. And I'm not entirely sure exactly what you guys are going for. Is it are you looking for something that has like sort of more of a, how do I say this? Like I think of some of the games I played, like take Destiny, for instance. Destiny 2. I played some Destiny 2. Very, very simple in terms of how it works, right? You just have, guns, and then you have, more guns, and you just keep collecting them. So it's not really an economy. It's just an economy between you and the game, right? And you play with other people. So I call those one-player games, so we play with other people. Or it's co-op. You're all kind of moving in the right direction, the same direction. Now, obviously, this is going to be more of an adversarial game, and so as such, there's a whole new component that gets added in when you do that. Like take Scum, for instance. Scum is an adversarial game, but it has no formal economy. There are no dollars. Now, I think what they're going to do is they're going to do kind of what Dead Side has done, where you can collect things in the environment and then bring them to an NPC and then buy things from the NPCs in game. And that's one way to do it. And like I said the other day, there's a really simple formula for determining how you do stuff like that, which is money in, money out. You just have to model your economy after a particular kind of player, and ideally that player should be somewhere on your bell curve, somewhere probably just past center, because you want the people that play most, to have that challenge. And so all you're doing is you're just making sure that after you model that character and you model out what you think he's going to make, you have to pull back out of your economy about that same amount of money. It has to be close. Now, if the amount of stuff in the game, especially in the beginning, as productivity rises, then you can put more money in your game because that money will get sunk into the productivity. Or as population grows, you can allow the money to grow because that money will be absorbed by additional players. So you wouldn't have, 100 million credits in one player, but you might if you had 100,000 players. You see what I'm saying? So these are the kinds of things that I think about when I think about like how are we going to model this? How are we going to make it interesting? In the beginning, to be honest with you, it gives you some interesting options. Like you can introduce money into your world as part of buying the game. Sort of. Again, I mean, Star Citizen probably has the most sophisticated economy I know. By the way, how do I get out of this car?
Press F.
Gotcha. So they're allowing people to buy in, right? That's how you get into the game in the first place, and from there you make a lot of money in game. But there are purchase options, some of which I think will eventually go away. I think eventually it will be. They'll probably, and we were actually having this discussion the other day, which was like, how do they bring revenue in? They said, look, if they stop selling ships, how are they going to make money? And I said, look, there'll be so many ships and so much opportunity for customization that people will want. There'll be like, in other words, per ship you could have like literally an almost infinite number of options for. We have 5 different seats and 5 different colors. You can change the trim on your dashboard. You can put little trinkets in your ship to make it yours. I mean, there's just so many options. Same with armor, same with, what I mean? So and I think that's how they're going to do it. And I'm not really sure what you guys are focused on as far as where you want to make money. So that's another thing I need to know as I ponder these decisions is, well, what's our what do you call it, your not your profit model, but like how you're going to monetize. That's what I'm looking for. How are you going to monetize the game? And then I can try to build or come up with ideas around that monetization framework. So that's what I'm thinking about, and that's one reason really why I kind of backed off, because I know you guys were busy just getting what we're looking at here.
Yeah.
You know, and it just didn't do any good for me to hound you guys about these sorts of questions when I think the answer is we don't know yet.
I mean, we've discussed it like with our we've got a financial advisor who's helped us with all of the financial forecasts and our monetization strategy, whether we're working with a publisher or not. And
Right.
we've kind of
Right.
decided to go for a product lifecycle pricing, where we would release the game in early access sometime next
Right.
year, and we'd price the game at around $20 or €20
Right.
for the early access
Right.
version. And when we release the early access version, we probably will give some of the in-game currency, which was formerly called DO and now is just represented by the D, kind of, I guess you could call it dollars, but like future dollars. So we could
Right.
give the players a bundle of currency in order for them to spend on the marketplace inside the early access version. But what
Right.
we're also planning to do is to have in-game customizations, character customizations, vehicle customizations, that kind of thing, that players
Right.
will be able to choose from, and they'll be available for purchase with the in-game currency. But players can also just buy them directly if they want to. Just buy the currency or buy items. We do plan to have an auction of items inside the game world. So it's going to be like a hybrid model of premium with in-game transactions as well. And then when the full game comes out, then we'll put the price up to the full retail price, which should be around $40, maybe €40, $40, something like that.
Right.
And we'll still have the in-game transactions. And the plan is to scale the premium price down as the years go by, and then just flip over to free-to-play entirely. So then we're just relying entirely on the in-game purchases.
In-game purchases, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I mean, so I guess that's something that I would call like hard and soft currency. So you like, again, I think Star Citizen, I think, uses primarily a soft currency in the game. But you have games like League of Legends, where there are two kinds of currencies, and each one of them, has the capacity to make purchasing in game. Hold on one second, somebody's calling me.
No worries.
Just real quick.
Did you see this, guys? Like, there's a bug here. Oh, just for a split second, my character was underneath the vehicle. So, does that happen all the time? Let's see if that's a recurring bug. It is a recurring bug. Okay.
Sorry, I just answered the phone. Yeah. So as far as bugs go, the only thing I've seen so far, this is a minor visual stuff.
Was the character underneath the vehicle?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was pretty.
I just recorded. I'm live streaming on Twitch right now, and I just had the same bug. I don't know if you come over to where I am, you can have a look and see if you also see this bug too.
Okay.
But one bug that I found is, I don't know if you can do this as well with the vehicle I've just spawned, but even standing over here, if I press F to get in the vehicle, it still gets in the vehicle. So I need to fix that. Press F and see if you can get inside. Can you get in?
I can't.
Okay, interesting. So you can't get in because I've spawned this. Okay.
Yeah, that must be you.
And then I'm currently sitting underneath. One sec. If I get back out, look.
Yeah.
Oh, can you get in now?
Yeah, I can. When I ran around this side, I could get in.
Oh, okay.
See if I can do it up close.
Ah,
Yeah,
okay. So you can get in. Okay. So let's see if we can both get in.
Okay.
I'll go in first, and then you try and get in as well.
I cannot.
Okay. So if I get out.
Oh, wait. I see you got out.
Yeah, I got out.
I was like, wait a minute, there it goes.
So if you crouch and you press C and you can crouch. Oh, we've got some lag here. Did you see that the vehicle's bouncing around a little bit?
Yeah, a little desync.
So if you crouch and look underneath the vehicle as I get inside, see if you can see me. Oh, underneath it.
Yeah, you are under.
Yeah, just for a split second, right?
Yeah, for a split second.
Yeah, just for a split second. Okay, good. So that's a bug that we both see consistently. A new feature that we've added is that when you're running, you can press C when you're running, and you can do a slide like that.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
One of the bugs though is that the problem is that you can still jump when you're doing that, right? So you press C and then you can press spacebar and you can fly up in the air.
That's funny.
Yeah. So yeah, we need to fix that. We need to disable the jumping when you're sliding. But the point for that, as I was explaining earlier in the stream, is to be able to slide into cover. Right now, we don't actually have any areas of cover at all because I think that it needed to be fixed. But yeah, so we've made some improvements, but it's still not quite there yet.
Yep. No, I mean overall, I'd say it's come a long way. But yeah, I know how difficult it is. I know I'm one of the few gamers that sits around and listens to people gripe about other games. I'm like, guys, you don't understand how hard this is, right?
Yeah.
And so even with CIG, you know, they should hire another 50 developers. And I'm like, guys, you can't just throw developers at this problem, right? There's only so many people that can work on a particular part of the game.
Yeah.
And then it just becomes unwieldy, right? At best, they can hire more to do more things in parallel, but even that has its limits.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, you know, what you're going to do depends on what you've already done. You know? So it is I know it's a challenge. So and I try to you know, keep in mind that when I throw this stuff out there, all I'm hoping is that, you know, that my voice is just another one for you to go, oh wow, yeah, okay, yeah, maybe we can do something different, or maybe not. I'm never insulted if you go, yeah, that's a terrible idea. I'm just trying to help.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I appreciate it. Absolutely, it's really good to get your insight, you know, into, especially on the economy side. It is true that we haven't really been thinking about it, although I do think about it because I'm always writing up all the Confluence pages and everything to do with the game, thinking long term. But you know, it's just a question of.
Well, one of my criticisms, and take this with a grain of salt, is one of my criticisms in gaming, and some of the articles I've written, is that a lot of times the economy is neglected until a lot of the mechanics are in, and then you have to sort of wrap the economy around the mechanics.
Yeah.
Instead of coming up with an economic model and trying to build a game around it.
Yeah.
Now, I realize that there are limitations, and maybe that would work for somebody who had $50 million, but just keep that in mind. Try to keep in mind that every action and thing that player can do it's all related to the economy in some way. Like how fast you can reload matters, because that affects how many NPCs you can kill, which affect, you know, it all boils down to, if you're trying to have an interactive economy between players, that every single action you take, the ability to build structures or not build them, you know, how much the car holds, how much you can carry on your back, whether inventories are globalized or localized, all of those things have huge impacts when you're trying to design an economy. So yeah.
So one thing that we've been discussing recently, Piero, the Houdini artist, and I have written a proposal for the dev team to work on, which we kind of feel would give the project a bit more focus, because obviously the whole point is for the players to choose roles and be able to, you know, interact with each other based on the role that they have. So we've written up a scenario where the players will be able to choose to be either the cyborg cop or a citizen, and then they can rob a gas station or a bank, and then there's a currency reward at the end of it. The thing is that we don't have anywhere for the players to store the currency yet, so we were just thinking about having it as a demo where you could essentially just, at the moment we have this battery, right? So you've got the battery over there, you can see the distance, and you have to deliver that to the checkpoint. But I was thinking that rather than it just being a battery, that it would actually be something that first you have to acquire by completing an action. You know, you've got to hold up a store or you've got to hold up the bank until they give you this item, which is virtual currency on some kind of disk or some kind of device. You take that to point B, and then you're able to cash it in for the amount of currency, depending on how long it took you, how long you were holding the place up before the cops come, you know. So this is like in Altus Life, for example. The longer that you're holding up one of the stores, the more virtual currency you're acquiring, because you're holding the shop up for longer, but at the risk of the cops coming and then arresting you or killing you because you're holding the place up. So it's like that. It's like a higher risk, higher reward.
Time versus reward. Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally.
And I was thinking that would be the best way to introduce the currency into the game, because, you know, I remember that previously we did have the Dio icon on the earlier PvP demo. But it wasn't really doing anything, and in fact the counter would go to negative if you got killed too many times. But you know, I think it is really important to introduce the currency into the game early, like you say, you know.
Yeah, and all I want you to keep in mind as you decide how the currency comes into the game is you know, from where I sit, as you know, someone who's thinking about the economy itself, is whatever decisions you make with respect to how it comes in. The way I like to think about it is the player's job is to unbalance the economy. That's what they're trying to do, because the more unbalanced it is from their point of view, the better they are relative to other people, right? And as the developer, our job is to try to maintain some semblance of balance so players don't go, well, this, you know, in other words, 10 to 20% of your players are always going to be the hardcore players who make the most, and you have to be careful that they can't run roughshod over everybody else.
Yep.
Because that ruins the experience of other players. So the question is, how do you prevent large disparities between the most powerful and the least powerful? Because the best games will be those that have, you know, reasonably small, not small disparities, but reasonable disparities between players, where those that just come in. I mean, I look at a game like Eve. Like, I would never play Eve. Anybody who gets into Eve today has years of playing before they're going to be at a place where they can play the game that arguably they want to play. You know what I mean? Because there's just so much development that has to take place when you play a game like that. And in a game like this, you don't, because you don't have the breadth and depth of you know, the years and years of development and the way they've come up with their system, you can't be that complicated. So that's just those are just some things to think about. I mean, I like the idea of introducing money into the game in a way that's not grind specific.
Yep.
I think that's one of the problems is that anytime you introduce a way to get money into the game where it's really difficult, then you're just setting yourself up for dominant players being dominant.
What do you think about having some kind of universal basic income inside the game? So I was thinking that you reward the players for playing the game, and they will automatically be rewarded some currency every hour, for example, that they're playing.
Yeah,
or every day, like daily rewards.
So I don't know if you saw that post that I sent you something in Slack about that, and I that's what I'm saying. I agree that rewarding people for playing is one of the best ways to do it, because then they don't have to. In other words, you get a new player that plays your game a year later, and he's getting currency just like everybody else.
Yeah.
And if what you need, another thing is like, how much do weapons matter? In Destiny 2, it's everything. You start out with a rifle with a power of 25, and you end up, the last time I played, it was over 200, and it took weeks, if not months, you know, to get to that highest level. So again, that it really depends on how we allow players to affect one another in combat. So in other words, if there's an M16 that does 25 damage, but a FN, you know, FAL that does, you know, 1,000 damage, then what you're doing essentially when you make weapons like that is the M16 is essentially worthless at the end game, right? Versus players being able to, and I think in the sci-fi genre, there's really, really good opportunities to, because you can sort of stretch belief through technology. It's even easier than magic. It's in ways, you know, like that's the advantage that fantasy games have, is they get to explain away disbelief. Oh, that's magic. Well, here we have technology that kind of does the same thing, but I think it's almost more believable in some way, because I think we all interact with technologies and we don't interact with magic. You know what I mean? So, you know, when Star Citizen says, you know, I'm trying to think of some of the examples, but oh yeah, like say, oh, your ship was destroyed, no problem, we'll just fabricate you a new one with insurance, you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, sure, that's technology. Whereas in a fantasy game, it might be, what's that, you died? Oh, we'll have someone cast a spell and bring it back, that sort of thing. So I think it's a little bit easier in that respect. But anyway, to your question, yes, I think introducing a currency over time as what I called it a stipend, right? Where you just get money. Now, what I would do, and this is what I said in my post to you, is, and this is probably obvious, so I apologize if this seems obvious, but you can't just give it to people for logging in, because if you do that, people will just log in and not play.
Yeah, or they'll log in, then log out, then log back in and log out, and they'll find a way to just farm currency.
Remember, the player's job is to unbalance the economy.
yeah.
They
exactly.
will do anything and everything they can to exploit your game.
Yeah,
I won't
exactly.
call it cheating because I define exploits as using all the mechanics in their game to use them in a way that was never intended, versus a cheat, which is actively somehow subverting the code or using your network connection to say lag through a wall. That's cheating.
Yeah.
Whereas, and exploitation is, I mean, something we'll have to live with, and obviously we'll have to rearrange the rules. I know in Scum, they let you build certain things on top of each other that were never intended to do that. So, sort of as fun, they have a wall that's something like 50 meters tall that you're not supposed to get over. So I'm like, let's use this exploit to get over the wall, and we did, and it was fun, and it didn't hurt anybody.
Yeah.
But other exploits hurt other players by, say, duplicating items. That's an exploit. Now you and I can argue, well, that's cheating. That's not how that's supposed to go. But that's didn't do anything. The system just works that way, and that's not their fault. So we have to patch that out. So, but the other idea I had, and this is just an idea, and I'll tell you my rationale, and I want you to just keep this in mind, is if you have minor and major currencies in different areas of the world, where in order to let's say there are certain NPCs, because I assume that a lot of the items are going to come into the world through NPCs. So if I want to buy a gun, I'm going to go buy it from an NPC. Is that a true
and
statement?
that's going to be our main source of revenue. Is the NPCs are almost acting as shopkeepers for our company, you know?
Yep. No, absolutely. Okay, so here's an idea, and just think on this, which is, what if different areas either had A, different items in different areas, or B, certain items cost less in certain areas, and then you had minor currencies in those areas. So in other words, let's say I live in area A and you live in area B. In area A, ammo costs a little less, and in area B, armor costs a little less. So in order for me to get the best price on ammo, I need money from area B. And so I engage in PvP, or I go to rob a bank in area B rather than in area A. And so for me to have, let's say there are 4 areas, one that has lower prices on armor, some ammo, some fuel, some vehicles. I'm just making those up. Then I need to collect money from all those different areas in order to get the best price. Like, I can still buy it with the money I have, I would just have to pay more.
Yep.
So just, and the focus and the reason for doing that is to keep players moving around the map and interacting. One of the problems in Scum is players collect stuff and they sort of hunker down where they're at, and they don't travel the map, which means they're not getting the experience of the content.
Yeah.
So part of creating sort of a minor currency would be to create the incentive, not forcing players. I can say, I'm just going to stay here and I'm going to pay more and just use the currency that I get here, rather than say, well, if I need to get the best price, I can go up and rob that bank up in area B and get that, and then use that to buy what I want and get a better price. So the best players will be those that roam all around the map. Just something to think about. There's a million ways to skin that cat. But
and I think that what we could maybe do is also have some kind of algorithm inside in the back end system, which may automatically just fluctuate the prices randomly, so that it's never constant. Maybe people could find some trade routes, but it's like opportunistic. Like they have to look to see where the price is cheaper from one day to the next, and then they can travel to that area.
Your algorithm could basically see what the demand is, and just as the demand for the item in that area goes up, the price goes up. I mean, you can base it on real world economics. And that's why too, I think, like, players holding cash, like I would never want a player to have to carry all.
No. Yeah, we're gonna have
this cash.
Yeah.
Right. But to be able to put players to that choice, where there's some benefit into holding some cash, they don't have to. They could store it all and keep it perfectly safe. But when you put choices in that allow players to carry some for one reason or another, it doesn't matter what it is. Maybe you have to carry cash from point A to point B to buy this particular thing, right? You can't just spawn it up. It's not safe. Puts players to choices, and it gives other players opportunities to say, let's ambush, someone who comes down here to try to get this. I mean, there's lots of really good gameplay loops that you can make around economies. The problem for me is because I'm not a developer, I don't know how hard it is for you guys when I come up with this stuff. If you go, oh yeah, we could definitely do that, or like I look at Star Citizen and the things that they're doing, they have to develop like, they want to do, and I'm sure you're probably familiar with some of this. They're going to have what they call Quanta, which is like a whole NPC simulation running in the background. And as you approach an NPC, it will spawn into the world, and it will act and do the kinds of things that it does based on the interactive NPC simulation that runs in the background. So in other words, an NPC can be delivering something from point A to point B literally within the code. It's not actually in the universe until you go near it.
Yeah.
So that saves the servers from having to display everything. And then I essentially I imagine everybody has this giant sphere, let's say a kilometer wide, and anything that you come near within that sphere will spawn into the world, and you'll see it just like it was always there.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of actual quantum physics and the kinds of things that they talk about, which is, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to see it, doesn't make any sound. Well, you can't know unless you're there. That's that kind of paradox. So, and I don't know how hard that is for you guys. So, like I said, as I make these kinds of suggestions, if the things that I suggest sound absurd, that's why.
I mean, I think that we're certainly capable of finding the right people to help us with this implementation of these things. But at the moment, like our developers are mainly focused on animation, UI, gameplay logic, and that kind of stuff. We've just not had any specialists who, I mean, maybe Dimitri actually could help. They've got some problems here with grabbing onto these ledges here. Maybe Dimitri can help, because he's worked on EverQuest and other MMOs in his lifetime. So I'm not sure if he was involved with the implementation of the economy systems, but he's aware of the scale and the scope of what we're trying to do here, and I think that it's just about finding the right people. So
yep, absolutely. And I realize the other side is, and people ask me all the time, hey, you said you were working on that game with that company. How's that going? And I'm like, well, as far as I know, they're still, trying to acquire funding. Oh, well, that's what you said last year. Well, that's game making.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't think any, these people just, sort of like go to a bank and borrow the money and then go make a game. It's just not how it works.
And we've tried going to the bank as well, but
right.
The thing is that the situation is that because we got money from the government, we have to put something as a form of security when we're just in case we default on the payments, And so the security that we put is the company itself and the assets that we're creating, So if we default on the payments, then the government can essentially acquire the company and the assets if we don't pay them back. But the bank also wants security as well, but they would be fighting over the same security. What else can we offer? So unfortunately, we couldn't get a bank loan. Otherwise, I would do that, But
I get it. And like I said, I'm probably unusual in the world of gamers in that I think I do understand a little better than the average person just how ridiculously difficult, doing this is. And like I said, I give you guys props, because to be honest with you, I think I told you this before, but I had come up with like a whole game economy for a fantasy setting, and there were like 3 or 4 indie guys that came up to me and said, we want to make a game around that. And I was like, okay, but it always turned out that their design aspirations were always light years beyond their wallets.
Yeah.
Like they weren't businessmen, they were programmers, and that's what I keep telling people. Steven's a businessman. Like, he's not just a programmer. This guy knows his shit. He understands. He's out there constantly, doing what he has to do on the business side. And so if this, I said, look, and again, I don't take this the wrong way, but I'm like, if this project's going to survive, it's going to be because Steven, drove the business side of it, not just created pretty assets. Because you can do this all day long and create the greatest game in the world, but if you don't have the money, it's all for nothing.
Yeah, I know. Exactly.
And from my point, I think I have a lot of good ideas that I've worked on over a very long time. But having good ideas is like having a great idea for a book, but not knowing how to write. What good would it do me to say, hey, I have this great idea for a book? No one's gonna write my book any more than anybody's gonna make my game.
Yeah.
So all I offer you is, you know, some of the things that I've learned and come up with, and you know, just I've played a lot of games. I mean, I've played a lot of Scum, and Scum's a little bit different. I mean, obviously it's more survival oriented. There's crafting in the game. That was one thing I was going to ask you, which is I think the ideas of like a blueprint system as a way to sort of get around crafting, but still allowing people to say collecting, you know, raw materials and then say bring it to an NPC, you know, or being able to craft small things in the field is really, look, you have this blueprint, so now you know how to do it, and it's sort of like a one-time thing, which saves you from having to build a whole crafting tree, so to speak, because I realize that's probably part of what that's about is crafting is one thing, then you have to balance, you know, then you have to, you know what I mean, that sort of thing, whereas blueprints kind of give you that option to do sort of a one-time, you know, kind of deal. But anyway,
it's still got to be kind of decided on what the system will be for crafting, but I was thinking, more along the lines, because it's a dystopian sci-fi world, but it's more that you take resources to a place, you can collect scrap, you can collect plastics and metals and things like that, and then you would take them to a refinery and then maybe be able to choose. I mean, it's still essentially crafting, but rather than you physically, you know, joining material A with material B to come up with object C, it's just you know, you're just putting it into, you know, some kind of device that then outputs, you know, food or weapons or that kind of thing. But I don't know. The thing is, I never really use the crafting systems inside games. I don't know about you, but for example, I'm playing Cyberpunk 2077 right now, and I haven't even touched the crafting aspect of it whatsoever. I'm much more of a kind of guy that I pick things up and then I you know, exchange them for other items and drop off the one that I had before or sell it, that kind of thing. So
right. Yeah, I would say that generally I'm a PvP guy. I like to PvP, but I think that having a system where you have players who are into that aspect of the game adds something, because if you look at, like, I hate to keep harping on Star Citizen, but I think the way Star Citizen is doing it is really interesting in the sense that I feel like Star Citizen is really not centered around combat as much as it is around hauling and mining, because those will be your real money-making opportunities. But in order for those, it only takes a handful of pirates to make it so that the PvPers need the PvE guys, the guys that are playing with the environment, really need the PvP player to protect them. So I belong to an organization, we want to haul 1 million credits worth of, you know, Laranite from one place to another. Well, I'm going to need an escort for that. You know what I mean? And players, and there's going to be a whole system in there for making it possible for players to move, you know, things from one place to another. So the point is that I'm a PvP guy, but I like to have reasons to PvP with respect to other players, both, you know, good and bad. You know what I mean? Not just on the adversarial front, but also in the cooperative front. So, hey, hold on 1 second. I'll be right back.
Okay. He's gone over there while he's doing something in the real world. He's run over by the rock.
So anyway, like I said, I think about it like this, and that is all your interaction is between the players and the games, and everything they do relies on them collecting things and then taking it back to the game. And you have a different game than if they collect things and there are certain players in the game that do those things, because that defines very different rules within the game. And then those players tend to cooperate, or at least ideally the most efficient players, I should say, because some players are just doing it by themselves. I mean, even in Star Citizen, we had a guy the other day who's been playing Star Citizen for 6 years by himself, and he joined us and he's like, oh yeah, I'm a pro, I've been playing for 6 years. I can't tell you how many times he's gone, oh my god, I didn't know that, I can't believe this, is so amazing, you know, that sort of thing. And that I think is sort of like, you know, what we call it, you know, sort of the tribal knowledge that groups get and then share within the group. And again, it just depends on the kind of game you want to make, and that's what I'm trying to figure out. And I know you probably haven't made any hard decisions, but from my point of view, like when I say, well, geez, what are we going to do here? And that's, again, kind of why I'm still kind of sitting back. I mean, I wrote up something 3 times to put on Confluence, and I'm like, I just don't have enough information for this. And I feel like, you know, when I do this, I don't want anybody to think that I'm being a pest, you know, like...
No.
He needs to slow down, and, you know, he needs to understand, and that sort of thing. So I'm kind of reticent to too much too early.
Confluence is like our Bible, you know, and it can always be edited, it can always be changed. We can, you know, I think that the more content that we have there, the better, because then we've got more reference material, and, you know, it can change, it can be edited, amended over time.
Sure.
You know, I migrated all of the game design document over to Confluence, and while I was doing that, I actually made a lot of changes, because I was thinking, well, this is like 2 years old, you know, we've made some changes since then, and the project has evolved. I still think at the core, the idea for the project is the same. It's obviously just dependent on the budget that we're able to raise for the project, you know. If we can make the game that we want to make, which is a really, really ambitious MMORPG with PvP and PvE, or if we descope the project and just have, you know, PvP with the vehicles and, you know, maybe a basic economy. And obviously we would like to have everything, but it just depends on what we're capable of.
Right, and that's probably a really good point. And that is, your economy is going to end up, really, the scope of the economy is really going to depend on the scope of the game, which in turn is going to depend on the scope of the funding. So that makes perfect sense, and I understand. One thing you need to understand is I'm here to help wherever I can at some point, and it's not my forte to say put together, you know, industry documents, things that other people would understand.
Yeah.
You know, who are coming in. I think of myself more, again, I mean, we discussed this before, I'm more of a consultant, and I'm just trying to help you come up with ideas. And I do understand the actual economy, and it's funny because a lot of people don't understand the way the actual economy works, and it leads, and I think if you did, you'd come up with a new perspective, right? So for example, a lot of people think that the government taxes money in order to have it. I'm here to tell you that that's 180 degrees out of the way it actually works. It actually works a lot of the way the games work, which is, in order for players to have money, the developer has to create it and circulate it, right?
Yeah,
so your players wouldn't join, and you'd say, okay, everybody, we've implemented a tax, so we have money to give you. Well, wait a minute, we don't have any money. How can we give it to you? You haven't created it yet. The government works exactly the same way. The government has to create money and spend it into the economy so people can pay taxes, not the other way around. We think that people pay taxes so the government has money. Now, that's at the federal level. At the state level, it's the opposite, because the state doesn't make money, the federal government does. So once you understand how money comes into existence and why it comes into existence, you can say, look at the game world a little bit different and say, we're responsible. We're the issuer of the currency. Now, in the game world, there's lots of ways to issue it. Like you said, you can issue it as a stipend. You can issue it as an interactive, task, like robbing a bank. You can kill, you can collect things in the world and then go sell them. That's all ways that you put money in. Now, my question to you is, while you're doing that, you need to think about ways to get it back out, right?
Yeah.
Now, one way, and one simple way, is simply that if they earn money by doing something, obviously, if they're purchasing from NPCs, that is a way to get it back out. The thing is that we have to look at is the players, what they're creating, somewhere close to what they're spending, and if not, what are they doing with that extra money? And if they're accumulating it, then what that will do is it'll cause the value of the money itself to begin to decline, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember playing Dark Age of Camelot way back in the early 2000s, when somebody said, hey, I'll give you 100 gold pieces for that. And I'm like, what do I need 100 gold pieces for? I have 10,000 and there's nothing to spend it on. So you need to make sure that there's places that players can always spend money. You know, Eve did it the way Eve did it, and the way Eve grounded it into something of real value, which is, look, you can use our currency, 1 billion credits to buy, you know, a month's subscription. Well, that meant that 1 billion credits was worth $15, literally, and it would never be worth less, never worth more. So those things were always grounded. Now, I'm not saying you necessarily need to do that, but that is one way to sort of think about, you know, as you're approaching your game, like what is my currency grounded in? Now, take a consumable like fuel. If fuel is important enough, and that's why I talked early on about trying to ground it in something essential, something that every single player needs and they can't have enough of, and then ground your, as long as your money is grounded as something that players can never get enough of, then it will always have value.
I was thinking that maybe what we could do is we could introduce, you know, batches of the in-game currency as the community expands, so that rather than just starting the game off and there's like an infinite number of currency that people can acquire,
right.
we have like a limit. You know, let's say we've got 100,000 DO tokens inside the game world. Everybody gets their universal basic income for playing the game, and then once all of it is in circulation, then, you know, people get less every time that they every hour they're playing the game. You know, so they have to spend what's in circulation. What do you think about that idea?
Well, what I was going to say, and that's a great idea, because as a developer, we need a lever that we can pull. Star Citizen, what they're going to do, and I listened to their developer conference, and they said, look, if we see money spiraling out of control, all the lever we have to push as developers is, A, we can turn up or turn down the rate at which NPCs are bringing raw materials into the game. So if we turn it down, there'll be fewer raw materials, which means the value of raw materials in the market will go up. That'll soak up the extra cash. The opposite is also true. Players have tons of money, there's not enough to buy, we ramp the NPCs up, bingo. Or the other lever they have to push is whatever the cost of the items, the raw materials in game, they can say make them more expensive or less expensive. And it all fits, because if they're already fluctuating right now, they fluctuate. If I go and I pick up a huge load of something at one price, the next guy that comes up behind me will find that the price of that thing, the profit, I should say, the profit goes down as people hit the same spot over and over again. That's a great way to force players to move around in the world and see your content. But it also prevents players from saying, hey, this route's open, there's nobody here, let's exploit this for all the money it's worth. Well, very quickly, it becomes worth less and less over time. And so, to your point, yeah, I mean, these are great ideas for, you know, making sure that you know, we're keeping the value, because all we want is for the value of the currency to stay consistent as possible. It's not going to stay consistent, but one of the ways that we can affect it is there are levers we can pull by saying, giving players less over time. Now that presumes that there's currency in the world that players can go get. So giving them less isn't enough. Creating a way for them to get it within the game is what matters. In other words, let's say that you tell people they can rob a bank, and they keep robbing it, and there's less and less money every time. Well, that means now the money's in the game. The question is once players have the money, how do you allow other players to go after other players to get that money rather than the game? So once they see, I robbed that bank the other day, I got 100,000 tokens for it. Today I robbed it, only got 10,000. It was hardly worth it because the cost of robbing it was bullets and fuel and armor and things I got blown up. So when I averaged that out, I only made 1,000 tokens for this. It wasn't worth my time. So the question is, where do we get them? Well, you know, that player over there, they have a fort or a vehicle. We steal the vehicle, and we steal the, you know, one of the things that Star Citizen's going to do, again, good game to look at, is what they're going to do is they're going to have ships, right? And right now, if you shoot a ship, it explodes. But eventually what they're going to have is you're going to shoot it to the point at which you knock out the systems in it, and then players are going to board those ships, kill all the enemies, And if you don't want to steal the whole ship that you shot all to hell, you have the option to steal the components within them. So you can steal the quantum drives and the coolers and the generators and the shield generators and stuff like that. And so that's one way that a player can steal money from another without actually stealing money. You know what I mean? Like, I'm stealing something worth money, and now it's more lucrative for me to attack players because the trade runs are all dried up. Everybody's hit them so hard, it's not worth the risk and reward isn't high enough. So now the risk and reward, because now players are more wealthy, their ships are bigger, the value of their components has gone up because they've all hit the world and drained all the money out and put it into the objects that they have in the game.
Yeah.
So making a way for players to interact with other players to I don't want to say steal, but I want to say that if there's a way, and the trick is getting people to accept it, right? So in Scum, when you die, you literally drop everything on the ground. In Eve, when you die, your ship is insured, so you don't lose the value of that, but the components drop on the ground. And in Star Citizen, your ship is insured, but all the aftermarket parts, and by the way, your ship comes with default items, so if you get blown up, those items are the components are going to be worth almost nothing, the base components. But it'll be the upgraded components that have the value, and then allowing players to accept the loss. Now, my guess is that they'll also introduce insurance into the game to insure your components. Now, here's the important part: as a developer, all I'm looking at is if we allow players to buy insurance, that's a guaranteed money sink because they're paying for it. That's a guaranteed money sink. What we want to make sure, though, is that it's still a cost overall to the economy, allowing players to insure things. So if I have a component that's worth 100,000 and every player pays in, I just want to make sure the amount paid in is more than the amount paid out. And the way that would work is the worst players would be using 60, 70, 80%. They would be collecting 80% of the insurance. But on the other side, the really good player is going to last a long time, and he's not going to be using that. And by the way, I don't know if you know this. I don't know if you've heard about Death of a Spaceman, but in Star Citizen, eventually it will matter. When you die, you'll die forever. And what'll happen is your stuff will be handed down to your next of kin. The problem is, and the reason you don't want to die, is that you'll be building faction within the game, and your faction dies with you. So it'll be really important. You're going to spend weeks and months building up faction. Well, guess what? I was talking to some people the other day, and I went, guys, when that comes in, large-scale space battles are not going to be fought in fighters. No one is going to want to risk their life in a ship they can be hit once and blow up. No one's going to do it. It's going to completely change the landscape of the game. So I know people that have 20 fighters, and I'm like, guys, you really need to rethink this, because now what's going to be interesting is that fighters are going to have a massive advantage in atmosphere, and that's where they're going to be the most useful, or in swarms. I mean, you could do swarms of fighters, say attacking larger ships, and people willing to risk their lives for the potential reward. Like, if we take this down, with 20 fighters versus this Corvette, if we can get it down and we can share the booty from this, it'll be very lucrative to us. But the point is that the idea is always trying to find ways to how do players interact with one another, and how do we share money between players? Well, components are the best way to do that, right? So I buy a vehicle, I upgrade the engine, you kill me, and let's say you steal the engine and then go sell it. So what I did, it's essentially, if you just boil this down, is I brought money into the game, you took it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
By you or like when you destroy the vehicle for let's say, that's money destroyed. That's literally currency destroyed. So that's another way to think about it, is if we allow players to bring money in, one way to let them bring it out is to destroy their stuff. That's a Eve. I think there was an Eve battle that destroyed $3 million worth of real money in that battle. Yeah, it's epic. I mean, it's widely known. There was this epic space battle, and people had spent lots of real time and real money in the game, and those components were destroyed in that battle. and that drained all of that out. So every time a component is destroyed, a player is going to want to replace it. How do they replace it? They go back and they play the game. And that's what we want. We need a model that allows money to come in, but then money to go back out, so that players want to. And as long as we make money getting fun, getting money fun, that's the key. Because I think that's the problem with a lot of MMOs, is the grind aspect of it. Is I want to do this thing over here, but I can't do it until I go on that 40-man raid, 6 times, in order to, 7-hour sessions, in order to grind out what I need in order to play the game I want.
Yeah.
The trick to me is that earning money should be playing the game you want, and I can't believe how many games separate those two.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Star Citizen has done so successfully, is that making money is playing the game you want. Players want to fly ships, and they want to go to different space stations and visit different areas. That's the game. That's exactly. I mean, that's why I think they'll be successful in the long run. I mean, they've obviously taken an awful long time to get it done, but they're making progress. They really are. There's a lot of things if you read the. Wow, you're not in your ship, by the way.
No.
And I've been noticing. No, from on my screen, you're not in the ship at all.
Oh.
And I don't know if it's desync, but like when I run, I've noticed, especially when I do like the jump, it's like real glitchy. It bounces all up and down and stuff like that when I'm doing the jump, I guess you call it, the double jump.
Can you jump on top of the vehicle? On top of the ship?
Yep.
Yes. There we go, cool. I'll take you for a little trip.
Yeah, this is actually pretty good, because most games would horribly desync when you try to do this, and it would throw you off.
Yeah.
But anyway, those are just some, things that I think about as I think about this. Is I'm looking at it from, where does money come from, and how fun is it to get it? Because the key, in my opinion, is as long as it's fun, your game will last a long time. Mm-hmm. The other thing I said to you too is that, like, one of the focuses of the economy is you come to me as the developer and you say, look, I need the content in the game to last long enough for us to make more. So whatever you do, we want to make sure that players don't reach the end game before I have an opportunity as the developer to make more stuff for them to do, right? So I've actually seen in some games where the developers will go to the economy guys and say, I need you to develop an economy that'll last 4 months. Mm-hmm. Again, for the model player. So you have a model player, and you say, I need that player not to be able to get through all the content in the game until, for 4 months. And mm-hmm. So then you start out by setting prices based on that goal. That way, whoever's behind your model player won't have reached the end. Now, as much as that sucks, that's how they're designed. Is they look at it from a very simple formula of, we need to make sure the content doesn't run out for 60%, 70% of our players. We want to make sure that there's always an opportunity to move forward. And the mistake that could be made is you develop it too low. 80% of your players reach the end and they go, I'm bored. And they leave before you get an opportunity to introduce new content. And I always say, it's so fucking hard. Once a player's left, it is so hard to get them to come back. It is ridiculously difficult. I can tell you in a million games I've played, there are people that have left and you're like, oh, we have new content. Come on back. Yeah, no, I'm playing this now. Yeah. I like this game better. And so that's what you need to be thinking about too, is like, okay, once we start out on this, you have to have a really good long-term plan as to how you're going to keep that going. Mm-hmm. Now, in my opinion, I think that a game like Scum, there's a lot of really compelling PvP play, which allows me to reach my goals as to what I want to acquire, and it's still fun playing the game. It's still a lot of fun. So that's another thing you can obviously do. And it just depends on how much content you put in your game. If your game is designed around lots of new cool quests and cool places to explore, once they do the quests and they explore the places, they'll get bored. So just keep that in mind as you move forward. What you're thinking about is, do I want to? That's why, like, allowing players to create fortresses, allowing players to develop reputation, allowing players to dominate certain areas these are things that don't require money. They require play against other players, and that gives you an opportunity to create something that's fun, even without the content that you make as the developer, right? Or allowing players to create their own content by having tools in the game to, say, build out things. And then, players will vie for control, by one way is creating scoreboards. Scoreboards are almost like a whole kind of side currency that isn't defined in monetary terms, but rather in accomplishment terms. You know what I mean? So there's lots of ways to think about that. So anyway, I'll shut up now.
This is very interesting, and yeah, I mean, I'm on the same page 100% because I agree with everything that you're saying. And yeah, I mean, I really want to have an open world where there's loads of different choices for the players to have inside the game world, and loads of places to explore. And I understand that in order to keep people engaged, we do need to have new content. Our post-launch strategy will be to add new content to the game world, new areas to explore, new types of missions, all that kind of stuff. So we're not going to release everything at the start. We'll be rolling out updates on a regular basis, and hopefully we keep the players playing. But I think that we see ourselves kind of as a it's very similar to what's the one that Nick is always mentioning? There's an MMORPG, which is
Albion.
Albion Online. Yeah.
I have to learn more about that because I admit I don't know a lot about Albion. So I'll take a closer look at that.
There's videos on YouTube where they introduce the game. On their trailer, they introduce the first sort of 10 words or the first sentence of them describing their game. Sounds to me, wow, it sounds exactly like what we're trying to do as well, just in a different style. We're going for like third person sci-fi cyberpunk kind of style, but in terms of the gameplay and the types of things you can do inside the game, I think there's a lot of similarities there. So yeah, we definitely draw a lot of inspiration from that, as well as Star Citizen and other games as well. So but
and the other idea, and I brought it up the other day, and I think he pointed out that's how they do it in Albion, which is rather than having dedicated classes, I think with the cyberpunk aspect of it, like having, like say being able to plug in something into your body or something like that sort of gives you, a certain number of abilities, kind of like a la the Matrix, is you plug something in your head and I know Kung Fu, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So by having the option to do that, the thing I love most about it is that players, I think, generally want to play a single persona. So I want to be a Lucian, regardless of whether I'm playing a medic or a demolitions expert or a sniper or whatever. I want my reputation to follow me. And how do you, a lot of games, you're forced to create multiple characters in order to accomplish that. But what if you could have a single player whose role is defined by the object he acquires? And again, from an economic standpoint, selfishly, I'm thinking about, well, then the player has to acquire for every class in the game or skill or whatever, he's got to collect all those items for all of those different things. Again, the beauty of Star Citizen, you don't just buy one ship to play the game. It depends on what you want to do, and it could mean that you have to buy lots of different kinds of ships. Well, to them, they see dollar signs, cha-ching, cha-ching. I know people who play this game who have spent $7,000. I know multiple people who've spent over $1,000. And I'm blown away at how much money people are willing to just throw at Star Citizen. I mean, they made like $3 million in a single day selling one chip, the Perseus, which just came out. They made $3 million, and they sell out of these things. They're not even like, they could have made more. They do like, well, we're selling 500, and bam, $600 a pop. Sell 500 of those, $3 million. Congratulations. and they literally sell out. There are people who stay up. They sell them 4 times a day. They break that lot of 500 into 4 piles, and they sell them all around the clock. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, I know I stayed up for the 3 o'clock one, and I missed the other 4, the other 3 because they all sold out. But the one at 4, it was up for 3 minutes, and I was able to get one. That sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I realized.
In Star Citizen, though, if people are able to buy these rare items, does that make it pay to win? Do they have an advantage over other gamers if they have these rare ships?
No, I would say the answer is no, because a lot of the rare ships require crews. Okay. So you can't run the largest ships by yourself. and you can still buy everything in game, and the model's going to change. You know, this is about raising money. That's why they call it a pledge. But I think eventually what they'll do is they'll go away from that once the game goes gold, and they'll go to a model that is more about, you know, buying items that don't have. Again, I described it in. So objects are either investment objects or non-investment objects. An investment object is anything that helps you improve your situation in the game, you know, versus other players. Where a non-investment item is the color of your armor, you know, trinkets that you put in your habitation or whatever. Those things are non-investment items. So they're going to move away from investment items to non-investment. However, having said that, players can also let other players borrow ships. Mm-hmm. So if I want to play in that ship, all I have to do is join an org and say, hey, does anybody have the ship I can play with? And they go, yeah, sure, I'll spin one up. Mm-hmm. Because it doesn't cost them anything, because they can recover it via insurance.
Okay.
Now, again, that mechanic will change. But I think they'll change at the same time. Once I'm not allowed... actually what'll happen is that players will be able to designate ships to their organization, and then there'll be a whole right structure. So I can go to my org and say, hey, I want to check out, you know, a heavy fighter for tonight, and you can go into and there'll be an interface that you'll be able to activate, and depending on your position and permissions within the organization, you'll be able to borrow those ships. And it will come that those things will come at a cost if you lose them. However, a lot of the players, I think the advantage that the early players will get is lifetime insurance. So again, they're trying to incentivize people to buy them now rather than buy them in game. And one of those incentives is that you'll have insurance forever. Now that only goes for the original concept sale, and sometimes they offer it later on, but they come at a lower cash price. So okay. A ship might cost $300, what they call war bond, or $350 if you use in-game credit. And you're allowed to melt your ship and turn it back into credits and buy other ships. There's all kinds of, it's very fluid. There are some pretty bizarre rules, but the point is that I would say the answer is largely no, because ships aren't really, it's not as easy to say, I have this ship now, I'm more powerful than everybody else. It really defines a role. So one of the biggest ships is the Hammerhead. It's got, 12, 16, size 4 cannons, but you can't operate it by yourself. You literally can't even shoot if you're the pilot. If you're the only one, you can't shoot any guns. It requires other people to do that. But even then, that role is sort of mitigated to, it's an anti-fighter ship. So every ship has a niche that it fits into, and not many ships are very broad in terms of what they can do. So even being able, I would say the pay-to-win aspect, if there is one, is a guy that can afford to spend $7,000. But even then, it doesn't affect me. He's not going to beat me any better just because he has $7,000 worth of ships. Because if he's fighting me, he generally has to fight a ship in my class because they're most effective. So a heavy fighter, a light fighter is severely outgunned by a heavy fighter, but it is much more agile. So I can get away from somebody in a heavy fighter if I want to. You know what I mean? So there's all kinds of stuff like that.
Cool. Anyway, we've been streaming for almost 2 hours, so it's been very interesting. I'm sure the guys who are watching as well have found it really interesting.
Okay, cool.
I'm gonna archive this stream so that then people can learn more about the suggestions for the economy and what we've got in mind.
Right.
But yeah, thanks very much for joining. And I think that
I'll do a little more research into Albion too, and I'll try to learn more about how they work, and so I can kind of form some of my ideas, or think about my ideas in the context of that game as well.
Yeah, awesome. Me too. I definitely need to play it. Right now I'm playing Cyberpunk, but I might wait until the bugs are fixed in Cyberpunk. But I need to get into the economy of Cyberpunk as well. Take some inspiration. I have a
feeling that Cyberpunk is going to be sort of the, Destiny model where you play, you gain an item, and then you play some more, and you gain a more powerful item, and you play some more. But the items are always sort of like in the scale of the enemies that you're playing against. So as your items get more powerful, so do the enemies. So you're getting more powerful items because the things you're doing are harder.
Yeah.
And the good players are the ones that can get to those items faster, which makes the enemies a little bit easier, and vice versa. I'm actually playing Death Stranding. I started playing that last night. and that's a really interesting game in itself. There's not a lot of fighting, but it's still there's a lot of inspiration, kinds of ideas and things that you can do as well. Even if you only watch the videos or watch the stream, it's an interesting game.
Cool.
But anyway, I'll let you run. Thanks for listening to me jabber for half an hour.
Absolutely. Thanks. Anytime.
I don't get to talk to you much, so when I get the chance, I just want to make sure that what I'm doing is useful and helpful and trying to be as much help as I can.
Definitely.
If there's anything you need, though, let me know. I mean, if there's something you want me to think about, tell me. Hey, we got this problem. We want some ideas, because that's when I think I do the best. Is I just start focusing on an idea and then thinking about ways to solve that problem.
Yeah. No, I definitely think that having some additional insight on Confluence, that then we've got things to draw from when we're at that stage when we're working on the economy, and it's really, really valuable, because it's like studying. We're studying, we're learning, we're doing research into other games, finding out what other games do well, what other games do badly, what we want to copy, what we want to avoid. So I think that the expertise that you've got, or the experience that you've got with playing these games and working on these games is really, really valuable. So thanks very much.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, thanks, Stephen.
Have a nice day. Bye bye. Thanks.
All right. Bye bye.
See ya. And thanks everybody for watching the stream. I'm going to switch it off now. We'll invite you guys to come and playtest once we've fixed some of these bugs, as you can see with the sliding and that kind of thing. Let's see, sprinting, sliding, and then jumping. We can fix that kind of thing. So yeah, thanks everybody. Have a nice evening and all the best.